The main character named Charlie comes to the first central hospital of his city to consult with an ophthalmologist. The doctor checks with Charlie about his details and asks him again about the symptoms he is complaining about. Charlie says that for some reason his eyes sometimes don't see very clearly. According to him, when looking at an object, he often sees a red stripe with numbers that hovers above it. The doctor asks Charlie how much he sees on this strip, to which he is told that the number 18 is lit on the strip. Suddenly, Charlie decides to ask the doctor if this number is his age. The doctor is a little perplexed by this question, and mentally asks himself whether Charlie is in the wrong department. Charlie wonders if these numbers are an indicator of death and misses the question from the doctor. Charlie sincerely apologizes for this, saying that he was a little distracted by his thoughts. The doctor tells the main character that he should take this examination more seriously and suggests that he examine his eyes. During a standard eye exam, the doctor finds no abnormalities and concludes that Charlie's eyes look normal. Suddenly, a new attack hits Charlie, and his eyes are covered with a red veil. He walks down the corridor and notices that each person has a stripe above their head, reflecting their life force. Charlie is glad that he can now see everything clearly enough and heads home. Charlie leaves First General Hospital, passing an advertisement for the Night Watch unit. This advertisement claims that in the 99th year of the cataclysm, a safe place has finally been created, while others continue to retreat. Charlie doesn't pay much attention to the advertisement and is walking home when suddenly his shoelaces come undone. As he bends down to tie them, he suddenly realizes that his surroundings have changed. Looking up, Charlie sees his city in front of him, only distorted and shrouded in dark shadows. Suddenly, a woman rushes past him, apparently not even noticing his presence. She and several other fighters attack otherworldly creatures that live in this world. Charlie looks at the battle and notes that things here don't look so good for the people. Before his eyes appears an unknown creature, shaped like the sun, with exorbitant vital signs. However, large and luminous heavenly drops suddenly begin to fly from the sky. Drops fall on the forehead of the main character, illuminating him with a slight glow. A split second later, Charlie comes to his senses at a crosswalk in his city. Charlie recalls that in the 99th year of the cataclysm, the only reliable support for humanity remained the army of the Night Watch. However, the main character is tormented by the question of whether his city is really safe or whether it is all an elaborate lie. A merchant approaches Charlie and offers him to buy medicine, assuring him that the quality is the same as the official one. Charlie is surprised that the dealer is selling drugs to someone when the city is full of monsters. After a few minutes of brisk trading, Charlie buys a bottle of divine oil and boards the bus. Charlie looks out the window, wondering if he's taken everything that's just happened too seriously. The announcer on the bus announces that the transport has arrived at the southern street, asking passengers to prepare to leave. Suddenly, the shadows thicken around Charlie again, and he returns to the gloomy world into which he found himself a few tens of minutes ago. Charlie shakes his head and looks around again, falling back into his world. Charlie is surprised that these strange visions visit him in such a short time. He decides that upon arriving home, he will need to take a good look around and goes home. Arriving home, Charlie decides to take a shower, after which he dries himself off with a towel and turns to the mirror. Charlie notices that there is a strange pattern in his chest that seems familiar to him. Charlie remembers that he was recently looking for his comic book in the library at night, which he had left there earlier. Due to his clumsiness, Charlie drops a book with a strange design on his head. From these memories, the pattern in his chest takes on life and begins to pulsate with energy. Charlie falls to the floor, clutching his chest, which begins to burn more and more. Taking the shower in his hands and pouring hot water over the area of the pattern, he manages to relieve the itching and pain, and he calms down. Charlie looks at himself in the mirror and notices that his life bar is now at its maximum. The main character is distracted from joy for himself by strange sounds behind him, which his writhing shadow begins to make. Suddenly, the shadow disappears, and Charlie begins to look for it in a panic, not understanding what is happening. Suddenly, the shadow returns to Charlie, and he calms down, saying that because of all the strange things, such events are no longer so surprising. After making sure that everything is in order, Charlie admits to himself that he is very tired and heads out of the bath. Opening the door of the room, Charlie comes face to face with a black silhouette resembling himself. After gawking at the mysterious creature, Charlie says that now miracles have definitely begun to happen in his life. The pattern on Charlie's chest begins to hurt again, and he grabs at it, trying to get his thoughts in order. Charlie is glad that his shadow has not disappeared, but the fact that it is now alive confuses him somewhat. After some time, Charlie, already dressed in his home clothes, orders the shadow to raise his hand, which it silently does. After trying a few simple commands, Charlie asks the shadow to perform some kind of dance, which also succeeds without the slightest problem. Charlie scratches his head and tries to figure out where this shadow even came from. However, his thoughts are interrupted by a light suddenly escaping from his chest, which flies into the center of the room. Wisp shows Charlie the data and characteristics of his shadow, providing the opportunity to enhance its skills. The light also gives the main character information that his shadow exists only thanks to Charlie, has all his memories and strength, and can also perform simple tasks, but does not have consciousness. Charlie decides to touch the shadow, and his hand passes through it, after which he realizes that the lack of consciousness deprives the shadow of the ability to speak. Charlie decides to check how similar memories he and the shadow have, and decides to delve into his notebooks. The main character takes out a sheet of paper with a math assignment on it. He extends his pen to the shadow and tells her to solve these equations. Shadow easily takes it in his hands and sits down at the table, starting to solve the problem. After a short time, the shadow writes on the sheet that the equation has been solved without writing anything else. Charlie curses at the shadow, saying that it has all his memories, adding that he would have decided for himself in 2 minutes. He decides to pick up another task for the shadow and asks the shadow to draw a picture of a horse instead of equations. The shadow immediately gets to work, drawing the animal with incredible speed. While the shadow is busy drawing a horse, Charlie decides to look at the shadow's other abilities. Among the skills, he finds the Shadow Bite skill, which allows him to absorb shadows, strengthening himself and his shadow. After looking around, Charlie decides to go to the corner of his room and try to touch the shadow. Despite all the mental and physical effort Charlie put in, nothing happened. After a couple of attempts, Charlie decides to return to the screen and reads the description of the Shadow Pupil skill, thanks to which the wearer can see the dark side of the world. Charlie suspects that this refers to the strange visions that came to his mind. The main character tells his shadow to stop drawing and do a couple of push-ups. The shadow gets up from the chair and, instead of following the order, begins to slowly merge with the floor. Despite Charlie's incomprehensible cries, his shadow sinks deeper and deeper until it finally disappears without a trace. Charlie looks around in shock, trying to figure out where his shadow went. He continues to turn his head around, demanding that the shadow immediately appear. After some time, a shadow funnel materializes in the air behind him. His shadow jumps out of it as if from a portal, looking very pleased with itself. Charlie, however, is not very impressed with this spectacular appearance and asks her why she just ran away. Shadow takes a notepad and pen and writes about how she was on the dark side. When Charlie asks what she was doing there, the shadow writes that she was doing push-ups. Charlie suggests that shadow training works better on the dark side and asks her to continue. The shadow silently nods and disappears into the floor again, leaving Charlie alone in the room. Charlie puts away his notebooks, picks up the stylus from his graphics tablet, and decides to get down to business. However, after a while, severe fatigue makes the main character fall asleep. A scream from the front door wakes the main character from a short sleep, and he goes to the entrance to open the door for his guest. His guest turns out to be his beloved childhood friend named Carol. Carol slips into the apartment and Charlie asks her why she came so early. Carol asks Charlie what he did yesterday, adding that she didn't really understand him from the messages on his phone. Suddenly, the deafening sound of a door closing startles Carol, and she flinches violently. Carol yells at Charlie, telling him that he could have just told her that he didn't want to talk instead of slamming the door so loudly. However, if Carol was scared by such a loud sound, Charlie was incredibly surprised at how much power he suddenly had. Carol examines Charlie and sheepishly asks him if he's pumped up. However, she quickly concludes that Charlie would rather die than practice. Coming closer, she asks the main character what he did to himself. Charlie says that he only did a few exercises, mentally guessing that the results of the shadow training are reflected on him. Carol, not satisfied with Charlie's answers, lifts up his t-shirt and examines his abs. Carol calls Charlie a liar, saying that it's so good to get abs with just a few exercises. She reports that she saw her father doing some business and says that it is not too late to stop. Charlie brushes Carol off, saying that he doesn't do anything like that. Carol suddenly grabs Charlie's hand and pulls it behind his back, ignoring his protests. She puts a bracelet on his hand, saying that it is a device for determining the pollution index. Carol explains that murder, foreign objects, and insults are part of the pollution. Charlie notes that his ability came from a strange book that was stuck in his chest and wonders if it could be of use to him. Suddenly, dark energy begins to pulse in his chest, and Charlie begins to fear that the device will detect it. He notices that Carol has pulled out a gun and begins to fear that she is going to kill him. However, the device signals that no contamination has been detected, and Carol calmly continues to twirl the gun in her hands. Carol explains her behavior by saying that her father taught her to be careful in everything. Charlie decides to change the subject and says that he recently made some drawings, inviting Carol to look at them. The protagonist's friend sincerely agrees and asks to show her the drawings as soon as possible. After a while, Charlie lies on the bed and admits that the situation was very close to critical. Charlie watches his shadow's progress and notices that its strength and shadow skills are growing rapidly. The main character understands that his shadow spent the whole night training hard. Charlie decides to summon the shadow to thank her for her hard work, as a result of which he became much stronger. Charlie adds that for further progress, you can increase the difficulty, to which the shadow responds with tacit consent. The shadow begins to train hard, performing exercises that are impossible in terms of difficulty. Charlie decides not to stop there and throws up more and more new challenges. Carol comes to the door of Charlie's room and hears his motivational speech. Assuming that Charlie is talking to himself during training, she mentally tells herself that she was worrying about him for nothing. Charlie walks down the street the next day, noting that he continues to get stronger without experiencing any pain. The next day, Charlie gave the shadow much more results, and the results were not long in coming. On this day, Uncle Lee, who was left without an arm during one of his military operations, came to visit him. Charlie hopes that through hard training he can become as strong as all his uncles. After several days of procrastination, Charlie finally decides to train himself and does 10 push-ups. After training, the main character decides to check the shadow's statistics and notices that progress has slowed down significantly. Based on the current progress, gaining the required number of points for evolution will be extremely difficult. Charlie suggests that to improve his progress, he may need to move into the dark world and plunges into darkness. A few seconds later, Charlie materializes in his own room, shrouded in a dark aura. Once outside, Charlie decides to walk through the dark world, trying to scout out the situation. Charlie notes that you can only get to the dark side by leaving the real world. Walking through a dark space, Charlie analyzes his surroundings and comes to the conclusion that the dark world looks very similar to the real one. Charlie loses his vigilance and does not notice that the dark whispers around him are thickening more and more, forming into something sinister. Charlie finally hears that there is someone behind him and turns around, assuming that his shadow has come out to meet him. However, turning around, Charlie is met only by a huge mouth with a row of razor-sharp teeth. The shadow monster raises its scythe weapon and prepares to strike. Charlie manages to react and quickly dodges the attack, jumping to the side. Continuing to dodge the monster's attacks, Charlie activates the shadow's pupil and opens a portal to the real world. At the last second before impact, Charlie dives into a shadow portal and disappears into the shadows. Once in the real world, Charlie crashes to the floor, hitting his face on it. The main character admits that he was very scared and wonders what it was. Charlie is glad that the shadow exercises have made him much more mobile, but decides to take revenge on the offender by taking a chair. However, subsequent rematches against the shadow monster are not successful. In one of the fights, he was injured, only miraculously avoiding broken bones. While escaping, Charlie receives a cut wound in the buttocks, which, however, does not prevent him from successfully retreating. After some time, Carol comes to him and helps him regain his strength by treating his wounds. Charlie states that scars adorn a man, to which Carol sarcastically asks whether scars on the buttocks are decoration. Carol argues that if Charlie is in pain now, it means his body will soon get stronger. Charlie asks Carol what her plans are for the rest of the month. Carol doesn't understand what Charlie means by the last month and asks him what he means. Charlie reminds her friend that this is a martial arts exam. Charlie recalls that during the disaster, most industries became less popular, including the cultural and arts industries. Charlie adds that the battles that occupy people's hearts now come first. To become part of the Night Watch, you need to pass a martial arts exam established at the state level. After some thought, Carol admits that she doesn't really want to take this exam. With some hesitation, Carol adds that what she most wants to do is make music. Charlie says that if that's what Carol wants, then he doesn't see any problem, but her father might not approve. Carol expresses confidence that her father will disagree with her wishes. She adds that anyone can now apply to take the martial arts exam. Charlie asks Carol why she is so hesitant, adding that she will definitely pass this exam if she wants. Carol says that the pressure on the Night Watch is constantly increasing, so almost everyone is taken there. Charlie thinks about the exam, telling himself that he will definitely fail it if there are tests with firearms. An additional frightening factor for Charlie is the possibility of going to some kind of correctional camp if he fails. Charlie asks Carol if he can use her detector, to which Carol asks him in surprise about the reasons why Charlie would need such a thing. Carol adds that her detector is only needed to detect others, and in Charlie's case, it would be better for him to run away and call the Night Watch and wait for rescue. Carol wonders if Charlie's interest is related to his possible plans to take a martial arts exam. Having received an affirmative answer, Carol quickly runs up to Charlie and asks him about the seriousness of his intentions, to which Charlie fussily replies that he also plans to create several comics about the different and special. By randomly blurting out the first thing that came into his head, Charlie arouses Carol's strong interest in comics, so she begins to press him for details. Charlie says that his original idea was to create a story about a skinny guy named Abin who was constantly bullied on campus, but he didn't hold a grudge and had a kind heart. Abin has amazing willpower and is transformed beyond recognition after receiving the super soldier injection. The Night Watch units did not plan to send him to the battlefield, but instead sent him to various events so that he could meet people from high society. Charlie ends the story at the most interesting point, saying that all this happened until the powerful others invaded the city. After some time, Carol brings Charlie to her home, asking him to settle down. Carol asks Charlie to stay here while she goes to her father's room. Charlie discovers a romantic manga about sibling love on Carol's bed and asks her if she likes the genre. Carol is embarrassed and quickly snatches the manga from Charlie's hands, clumsily making an excuse by saying that it is her friend's book, which she has not read. Carol orders Charlie to sit still and not touch her things, then leaves the room. Charlie smiles, sitting on the chair, and mentally reflects on the fact that Carol has remained the same and has never learned to defend herself. He turns his attention to the guitar, noting that Carol has liked music since childhood, remembering how she used to pester him. Charlie turns on the tape recorder and remembers how Carol spent a lot of time next to him as a child. Unbeknownst to Charlie, Carol returns to the room and asks him about when he started liking music, adding that he used to hate it. After these words, Carol throws virtual reality glasses to Charlie, saying that everything he needs is here. Charlie puts on his glasses and then falls into a bottomless virtual space. Floating in the air, Charlie is surprised to find himself in a virtual version of Shenzhou. According to his recollections, this space was considered the primary source of the cataclysm in which the first others appeared. Charlie notices that some of the monsters were strikingly similar to those he observed in the hospital. Charlie reasons that between our world and Shenzhou's world there is a space called the Dark World. Based on what Charlie read earlier, the shadow layer is reset every 3 months, redisplaying the current picture of the world. It is during this period that others penetrate into our world, and since the layer of shadows significantly weakens the world's defenses, people below rank 4 are better off not going out at such moments. Also in the shadow layer, there are many different types of pollution, prolonged contact with which increases the risk of becoming different. Carried away by his research, Charlie does not notice how a huge other appears behind him. However, fortunately for him, a powerful beam of light falls on the monster, dissolving it in a second. Charlie notices that his savior was a humanoid creature, which he easily recognizes as the Special One. Charlie notes that the Special Ones look incredibly cool, hoping to one day be the same. Thinking, Charlie understands that the Special is someone else with the body of a person who controls his power, but because of it, he dies. The main character remembers that special people constantly struggle with pollution and alienation, and after their death there is a high probability of becoming different. That is why, from Charlie's point of view, when specials feel death, they try to deplete themselves as much as possible so as not to turn into a powerful other. Charlie takes off his glasses, very pleased with the images shown. Carol asks Charlie about his impressions, to which he replies that such a large amount of information needs to be digested. Suddenly, Charlie asks Carol if she could stretch his neck, to which she only receives a disgruntled refusal. Charlie offers Carol 3 original paintings, the content of which she can choose herself. With some reluctance, Carol agrees and begins to stretch Happy Charlie's neck. Carol asks Charlie what's causing his neck pain, to which Charlie says it's because of the training. Carol wonders if Charlie continues to pump up his abs, and having received an offer to touch him, he lifts up the protagonist's t-shirt, touching the rectus muscles. However, the couple is caught by Carol's father, Lou, who has arrived unnoticed. After some time, the heroes silently dine in the kitchen, not daring to start a conversation. Charlie notices that Uncle Lou is looking at him with an undisguised desire to beat him. Carol decides to be the first to break the heavy silence, telling her father that he got it all wrong. Uncle Lou asks Carol what he didn't understand, adding that his eyes are unlikely to deceive him. Finding nothing to answer, Carol knocks on Charlie, demanding at least some sane words from him. Making a serious face, Charlie says that he will drink 3 glasses as punishment. Assuming that Charlie has something to punish for, Uncle Lou rushes at Charlie, asking his daughter where his knife is. Charlie remembers that Carol and he were childhood friends, although their personalities are completely different. While he was a bully boy, Carol was always a diligent daughter. Charlie suggests that the reason Carol kept hanging around him was because he once protected her from bullies. According to Charlie, she accompanied him on all his adventures, getting into a variety of adventures. However, Uncle Lou never allowed Carol to get too close to Charlie, constantly being wary of him. Uncle Lou looks at Charlie darkly as he takes a cigarette out of his pack and prepares to light it. Carol quickly approaches her father and takes the cigarette with a displeased look. Uncle Lou finally decides to break the dark staring game and asks the heroes what they were doing when he returned. Charlie quickly admits that they were researching information about others and special ones. Having made sure that this is true, Uncle Lou instantly becomes kinder, saying that now he understands everything. He asks Charlie if he knows why the government doesn't let students know about all this in advance. Charlie thinks for a while, after which he honestly admits that he doesn't quite understand the reason. Lou replies that everyone's heart is different, and in some, evil begins to prevail over kindness, and despair can attract creatures from Shenzhou, so there are certain things that everyone should not know about. He adds that not everyone has enough willpower, so if a gap forms in the heart, someone else can penetrate it at any moment. That is why, from the uncle's point of view, various tests are carried out, since only people with appropriate physical training can come into contact with the world of others. However, according to Uncle Lou's observations, even in this case, this world is very dangerous, and even with the current medical abilities of people, it is still out of control. Charlie says that he understood all of Uncle Lou's instructions, but he can't miss the martial arts exam this year. Charlie and Lou's conversation is interrupted by a phone call informing their uncle of an urgent mission concerning the shadow layer. Uncle Lou immediately announces that he is moving to the location, telling Charlie that he will take him on the night watch if he passes all his exams well. Charlie puts on a serious face again, answering that Uncle can be calm and adding that he and Carol will not do anything forbidden. Carol gets angry at Charlie's jokes and stretches his cheeks, screaming that they have never thought of anything like this before. After a while, Charlie goes to the store, summing up the results of his visit to Carol, and admitting to himself that he did not learn much new. Walking around the store, Charlie mentally complains that the information he needs will most likely remain classified. Charlie wanders around the store for a while when he suddenly hears his phone ringing. Carol calls Charlie and asks him to buy eggs and a carton of milk, trying to ask him to buy something else, but quickly changes her mind, and without finishing, asks him to forget about it and hangs up. Charlie realizes that she tried to ask him to buy several packs of pads, but was embarrassed and decides to buy them for her anyway. The main character returns home, noting that there is a month left before graduation, upset that the effect of training has begun to wane. Charlie comes to the conclusion that real shadows will have to be added to the training. Charlie watches the moon and feels as if something terrible is about to happen. However, Charlie decides that he hasn't been imagining too much and decides to stretch himself a little. After looking around and making sure that no one is nearby, Charlie opens a portal to the shadow world. Once inside, Charlie immediately hears some strange sounds and notices an approaching strip of life in the distance. A very wounded man appears in front of him and slowly approaches him. Charlie recognizes the exhausted man as a neighbor in the building and asks him why he is there. The neighbor does not give any answers and silently falls to the floor, completely losing his strength. However, behind him, Charlie notices some strange and painfully familiar creature. Taking a closer look, Charlie recognizes the creature as the shadow monster he fought with a few days ago. Charlie clenches his fists and decides it's time to end this once and for all. A few tens of minutes ago, the soldier surrendered his guard, admitting to himself that he was terribly tired. His complaints about life to himself are interrupted by a cry for help coming from a nearby gateway. Having come running to the cry, the soldier discovers two small children who are being sucked into a shadow funnel. The soldier briefly falls into a stupor, not believing that someone else is so openly dragging people into the dark world. The children continue to be pulled deeper and deeper, and they desperately cry out for help. The soldier quickly comes to his senses and jumps towards the children, shouting that he will help them. The soldier manages to grab the children by the hands, but the portal sucks him in with them. He finds himself in a shadowy version of the alley, and the children start crying in fear, looking for their mother. The soldier becomes desperate, saying that he has no weapons and his fighting skills are very weak. However, his monologue is interrupted by a shadow blow flying at him and the children at great speed. Quickly gathering himself, the soldier makes a successful attempt to repel the attack. The soldier notices that the gap has disappeared, which means they will not be able to return back. He mentally notes to himself that there could be others everywhere who will attack at any moment. However, the most terrible factor from his point of view is that there are helpless children here. The soldier understands that all he can do is send a distress signal and wait for rescue. He gives his device to the kids, asking them not to cry and adding that the device will help counteract the local pollution. The children wipe away their tears and ask him if he can take them home, calling them brother. The soldier replies that he will get them out of here, but they need to stay close to him. Suddenly, a shadow monster hiding in ambush attacks the heroes from around the corner. The soldier recalls that when he was 18, he passed the martial arts exam and entered the martial arts department at the university. According to him, he worked hard from the very beginning and took first place in the alien battle exam. However, this turned out to be not enough, since in the other world, diligence occupied far from the first place. The soldier refused to believe in fate, but no matter how hard he tried, he still could not step over his limit. In the end, all he had to do was move from the faculty to the humanities, becoming an ordinary civilian employee. Returning to the present, the soldier analyzes the shadow, concluding that it has a half-human form and believes it to be of an average level. The shadow rushes to attack, but the soldier manages to dodge and immediately hit it in the side. Having delivered several successful blows to the soldiers, he rejoices, saying that the previously familiar feeling has finally returned. However, because of this, he loses his vigilance, and the shadow manages to grab him, pushing him forcefully into the wall. The soldier swears that his body was slower than his mind, and notes that he should be more calculating. The shadow continues to press the soldier, delivering dozens of blows, which he barely dodges. The soldier realizes that he won't be able to run forever, so he decides to take a risky step. The soldier flies into the air and uses shadow power, blinding the monster. However, very quickly this force begins to harm him, little by little polluting his soul. He understands that due to his low qualifications, he will not be able to use the powers of the shadow many times, but he does not have much choice. The shadow monster makes a swift dash and delivers a precise blow to the soldier's chest. The soldier flies back and quickly stands up, surprised at how quickly the monster has adapted to his fighting style. He notes that any student from the Academy's combat department could cope with it, but for him it is a great difficulty. However, from the soldier's point of view, he has no right to retreat, so he must bide his time until others pass. One of the attacks, the shadow monster manages to hit the soldier again, piercing his shoulder. Without wasting a second, the shadow monster immediately knocks the soldier to the ground to finish him off. From severe damage, the young fighter's eyes darken, and he asks himself whether he is dying. He recalls that at the age of 15, his family was killed by others, so at the age of 18, he decided to take a martial arts test. The shadow monster notices that the soldier is not moving and prepares a powerful finishing attack. Gathering all his will into a fist, the soldier understands that before death, He must give his best, imbuing himself with shadow power. He easily dodges the shadow's numerous strikes as he flies into the air. Taking advantage of the small window of opportunity, the soldier lands a precise kick to the creature's head, stunning it. While the monster is briefly immobilized, the soldier begins to unleash a hail of shadow attacks on the creature's body. However, each blow consumes more and more of the soldier's strength, which is why he begins to slowly weaken. Not having time to finish off the monster, the soldier freezes in place without strength, holding his heavy fist in the air. The shadow counterattacks, knocking the soldier off his feet and sending him flying. The soldier falls to the ground, admitting to himself that he cannot see anything, and lamenting that his skills were not enough. The soldier is summing up his life when he suddenly hears some sounds not far from him. The source of the sounds is Charlie, who loudly asks what is going on here. The soldier tries to understand who is standing in front of him, turning over options in his head, but does not recognize Charlie as a member of the Night Watch. Charlie approaches the soldier and tells him to rest and rely on him. The soldier remembers that the exit from the dark side is tightly controlled, so that a random person cannot get here. However, the soldier's thoughts are interrupted by a shadow monster, which delivers a quick fist attack, throwing Charlie far away. He falls into incredible shock, realizing that Charlie is an incredible weakling. Not wanting to mess with Charlie, the shadow monster decides to finish off the soldier, swinging his arms for a quick attack. Luckily, the monster doesn't have time to strike as Charlie slaps him hard, interrupting the attack. Charlie looks at the monster with contempt, telling him to fight him. The monster turns on Charlie and launches a series of rapid attacks, which Charlie successfully avoids. Seizing the moment, he delivers a powerful blow with the bottle, breaking it and forming a rose out of it. The shadow monster attacks Charlie again, but he dodges, quickly moving behind him. Charlie pokes the monster's weak spot with the sharp glass, causing it to writhe in pain. Enraged, the monster begins to furiously attack Charlie, but he easily dodges each of them. Charlie lands several more blows with the broken bottle, forcing the shadow monster to retreat briefly. Charlie decides not to let the monster go, shouting that this time he will not lose and rushes to the attack. The shadow decides to take advantage of Charlie's carelessness and strikes the hero's unprotected body with his tail. After flying into the wall, Charlie scolds himself for his carelessness, telling himself that he shouldn't have attacked the same place. Charlie realizes that the monster cannot be allowed to attack the children, noting that if the monster could just escape, it would have already done so. The main character notes that the shadow has only 20% of its life force left, which means today he will complete the job. The soldier tells Charlie that the monster has a serious injury in its right rib and recommends attacking there. Taking the necessary information to heart, Charlie lunges at the shadow monster with a series of lunges. Charlie begins to distract the monster by quickly moving, after a certain number of attempts finding a suitable window for an attack. Hitting the weak spot takes away 2% of the shadow's health, and it screams loudly. The shadow takes off again, and Charlie assumes that it is going to run away. However, the shadow flies jerkily towards small children in order to devour them and get their blood for restoration. Having reached them, the shadow opens its huge mouth, into which there is some kind of black clot that resembles a tongue. A little boy hugs his girlfriend and looks with horror in his eyes at a row of sharp teeth. Charlie tries to thwart the monster's intentions, realizing that he will not have time to reach him, so he charges himself with energy, preparing to throw. A soda can thrown at a monster at great speed crashes into the monster's head, but he does not pay attention to it. However, at the very last moment, the soldier gathers his remaining strength and delivers a powerful kick to the monster's body. From such a blow, the soldier's vital signs drop by another 3%, and he begins to cough. The shadow becomes furious and decides to eat the weakened soldier instead of the children. However, Charlie manages to reach the monster in time and grabs its face, preventing it from biting either itself or the soldier. Charlie screams at the monster, telling it to die, and sinks his teeth into it forcefully. Continuing to hold the monster in his grip, Charlie knocks him to the ground, striking him. Having gained an advantage over the enemy, Charlie begins to strike multiple blows at the monster. After inflicting enough damage, Charlie again commands the monster to die and delivers a powerful finishing attack. From a powerful blow, the monster shatters into pieces, filling the main character with strength. He barely gets to his feet and notices how objects around him begin to levitate. Charlie takes a deep breath, putting his hand to his forehead and is glad that he finally got his revenge. However, he does not have time to enjoy the triumph as his eyes begin to darken. Charlie has visions of himself standing at a collection point, surrounded by piles of corpses. Charlie recognizes the place and asks why it has changed so much. Suddenly, dozens of shadow monsters materialize around Charles. Without giving the main character time to come to his senses, the monsters attack him and tear him apart. Charlie wakes up, barely opening his eyes and seeing a soldier in front of him who asks him if he is okay. Clearing his throat of the settling dust, Charlie says he's fine. The main character turns around on the head of another, noting that after killing the monster, his memories are cut off. He puts his finger to the head and uses the shadow pupil skill to absorb the essence of the monster. The soldier asks Charlie if he is listening to him, to which he replies that he can hear him. Charlie mentally notes that the soldier is in serious condition and has lost a lot of blood. The soldier invites Charlie to sit next to him against the wall, and they both sit down to rest. The soldier looks at Charlie briefly and asks him if he is a member of the Night Watch. The main character is mentally surprised that the soldier did not recognize him despite the fact that they live in the same house. Assuming that the soldier has difficulty seeing, Charlie admits that he is not a member of the Night Watch. The soldier chuckles and says that he doesn't believe it, adding that an ordinary person could not cope with someone else of this level. Charlie mentally grumbles about how the soldier is interacting with him despite the fact that he saved his life. The soldier laughs at Charlie for hitting the other soy sauce, saying that it was quite resourceful. Charlie is surprised that the soldier laughs in such a difficult situation, noting that the men on the Night Watch are amazing. The soldier asks Charlie what university he attends and what course he is in. Charlie replies that he is a second-year student, to which the soldier inquires about his department. Without waiting for an answer, the soldier assumes that he is studying at the martial arts department, since he is too strong for the humanitarian field. Suddenly, he asks Charlie if he has any cigarettes on him. Charlie says that he only has bikes with him, but the soldier agrees to them. Charlie hands him a piece of the story, saying that the rest were broken during the fight with the monster. After eating the cookies, the soldier asks Charlie if this is the first time he has killed someone else alone, to which the main character gives an affirmative answer. The wounded fighter admits that he has always admired the martial arts department and shares his feelings that his qualifications are much lower. Charlie advises the soldier to talk less to save energy until help arrives. The soldier replies that he is fine, saying that he just wanted to talk to someone. Charlie asks the soldier how he was able to fall into the dark world as an art student and asks him if he regrets everything. The soldier replies that it was his personal choice and he has no regrets. Unable to bear it, he shouts that he is a civilian who goes to work every day and chats with girls, asking if this is a wonderful life. The soldier starts coughing, and the main character again recommends that he calm down, otherwise it will be hard for him. The soldier says that he sent out a distress signal a long time ago, expressing confidence that help would be on the way. Charlie gets up and starts to leave, but the soldier grabs his sleeve and advises him not to walk around alone, suggesting they chat a little more. Charlie reluctantly sits down and listens to various stories from the soldier's life about what he used to be like. At the end, he asks Charlie to take something to Director Joe from the Extraordinary Technology Specialty. Charlie says that the soldier will be able to come there himself and tell everyone everything. The soldier says that for a long time he carried everything inside himself and was looking for someone with whom he could chat. The soldier asks Charlie if he still has some chopsticks and asks for a couple of them. Charlie notes that the soldier liked them, grinning slightly. The soldier turns his head towards the sounds from the side and says that the Night Watch seems to have arrived. Charlie says that now he will finally get help and begins to get ready to leave in his own direction. The soldier asks Charlie if he will go with him, to which he replies that he will get home on his own. Exhaling heavily, the soldier smiles at Charlie and wishes him a safe journey. Charlie thanks the soldier and walks away towards the house, after which he turns back. Backup locates the Night's Watch member and approaches to check vital signs. Charlie notices that the wounded fighter's vital signs are beginning to plummet. Charlie begins to teleport and is surprised that the Night Watch cannot help their ally with the current level of medicine. The fighters decide to salute as a final tribute to the fallen soldier. Charlie tries to reach out and run to the dying soldier, but the crater sucks him in. Charlie again finds himself in a pedestrian crossing surrounded by unsuspecting people. Charlie remembers one of the video briefings of the Night Watch, which says that they should not give up even on the verge of death. According to the rules of the Night Watch, they must take a pill that will increase their power, but the chances of death from poisoning reach 90%. Charlie returns home devastated, believing that the soldier actually took the pill that ultimately killed him. The main character understands why the soldier constantly laughed it off and wanted to talk so much. Charlie tells himself that he will always remember him, despite the fact that this soldier passed away so quietly and modestly. He notices his life bar in the mirror, noting that it is quite high despite the fact that he can barely stand. Charlie believes that training just your body is not enough, adding that you will also have to concentrate on willpower. Charlie's thoughts are interrupted by Carol's question about eggs, causing him to drop the food in fear. Carol confronts Charlie about how he isn't answering his calls and isn't home, asking him if he went to the hen house for eggs. Charlie responds with a hastily made-up excuse about being in line for a long time. However, after thinking for a moment, he turns around and asks Carol where she got the keys to his apartment. Carol says Uncle Lee asked her to take care of him since he doesn't cook or order his own food. She examines Charlie, asking him what happened to him, suggesting that he got into a fight. Charlie clumsily responds to Carol, saying she has to go home or else her father will get it all wrong again. However, Carol does not pay attention to his words and grabs his clothes, demanding that he turn around. Carol notices that Charlie's clothes are badly torn in places and asks him excitedly and loudly where he got so hurt. Charlie tries to break free, asking Carol to let him go, to which she demands answers. The main character again comes up with a fictitious story, saying that on the way home he was attacked and robbed, but he caught up with the offender and beat him, after which he went home. Charlie brags, saying he has incredible reflexes when boxing with air. Noticing the bruises on Charlie's face, Carol touches his cheeks with her hand, gently running her fingers over him. Charlie freezes in place, letting Carol examine him, admitting to himself that she will never believe his bullshit. After a short pause, Carol asks the main character if he is in pain. Charlie gets a little embarrassed and says he's fine and just wants to sleep. Carol quickly leaves him and says that he needs to tell Uncle Lee about everything because it's no good to fight at night. Charlie grabs Carol's hand and says that he was just standing up for himself, asking her not to tell her uncle anything. Charlie theatrically falls to the floor, saying that he is too weak to go any further. Carol says that Charlie needs to go to the hospital, to which he shirks, saying that he has everything he needs at home. Carol irritably asks Charlie if he expects her to give him medicine, to which he smiles and asks him to patch him up. Carol bandages all of Charlie's wounds without unnecessary tenderness, causing him to scream in irritation. Carol hits Charlie on the shoulder and asks him if he will do this again, to which he promises that this will not happen again. Carol asks Charlie to swear, but he replies that he cannot promise such a thing, because the desire to fight is inherent in men by nature. Carol begins to hit Charlie lightly, and he promises that he will no longer get into fights himself. Carol finishes the bandage and says she's leaving, to which Charlie invites her to stay, adding that he has a very large bed. Carol turns towards Charlie and sticks her tongue out at him before leaving the apartment. Left alone with himself, Charlie remembers the soldier's request for a message to Beta. Suddenly, Charlie jumps out of bed, remembering that he didn't even know his ally's name. After some time, Charlie decides to look up information about the other one he recently destroyed. Charlie wonders if the first person killed will be displayed by someone else, or if he will be consumed by the shadow's bite before the kill is registered. Charlie notices that as a reward he received the skill of Sneaky Strike, which is a hidden attack from the shadows that the enemy cannot see. Charlie decides to try out the skills he has learned and stands in the center of the room, saying the name of the skill. Nothing happens, and Charlie suspects something is wrong with the system. Charlie thinks about it and assumes that the problem is that there is no target for the attack. Charlie decides to explore himself and looks at his options, which reveal that he is a stalker who is at home in the shadows. Charlie wonders why everything is written in such convoluted language, wondering what he should do if he is in the light. The system informs Charlie that his shadow has undergone dramatic changes, and now he can fully control it and merge with it. The system message says that when training in a new form, the effect of training will be significant, which delights the main character. Charlie is also informed that in case of serious injuries, his blood volume will be delayed, which will slow down his measurement. So Charlie says that it is better to die happy. Having finished learning the new features, Charlie decides to summon a shadow to test everything in practice. A few seconds later, the shadow crawls out of the floor and freezes, awaiting his commands. Charlie decides to try touching the shadow and sticks his finger out, slowly moving closer. Touching the shadow, he begins to slowly merge with it, watching as darkness envelops his skin. Having completely merged with the shadow, Charlie decides to test the capabilities of the new form. Charlie begins to rush around at breakneck speed, turning into a shapeless clot of shadow energy. After testing his speed, Charlie decides to train his strength and lifts his bed with ease. Delighted with his new powers, Charlie says out loud that he is now invincible. Charlie is pleased to note that the shape of the shadow is not striking, but it justifies itself perfectly. The system suggests that Charlie take the stalker skill, warning that no one else has it, adding that this has its own risks. Charlie thinks about the offer, deciding that the opportunity may be worth the risk. However, suddenly a shadow creeps out of the system window, preventing Charlie from making up his mind. The shadow envelops Charlie, sucking him into a shadow cocoon and interacting with his power. After the metamorphosis ends, the system informs Charlie that he is now a killer, adding that if he does not kill, he will die himself. The system warns that his attacks can now damage even a god, but he will not be freed from the need to kill. The next system screen states that once shadow form is activated, his killing ability will be greatly increased. The system also adds that he can now activate the decapitation skill, which depends on the blood level, strength, abilities, and other factors of both parties. Charlie guesses that this is the skill that activated the last time he killed the shadow monster. The main character again rejoices at his newly acquired powers and hopes that he is now invincible. Charlie suddenly feels relieved and checks his wounds, noticing that he is completely healed. The protagonist suggests that activating the shadow form greatly enhances the power of regeneration. The next morning, Carol's classmates notice a photo of Charlie on social media. One of Carol's friends says that she heard that yesterday Charlie met some merchant and fought with him, but he had a knife. Carol tells her classmates not to fall for these stories, adding that a dog was chasing him. After some time, Carol and two classmates come to Charlie's apartment. Suddenly, one of Carol's friends asks Carol where she got the key to Charlie's house, confusing her. After answering the question evasively, Carol enters the apartment, saying that she came to visit him with her friends. Charlie sits in the center of the room and checks his wound, which has suddenly opened. Carol flies up to the main character, asking him if he still has bandages. Carol's friends approach Charlie and excitedly touch his new muscles. Carol quickly puts a stop to this act of generosity by telling her friends to get into the living room. Carol's friends hear screams from the room and ask each other if Charlie will be okay. Carol treats Charlie's wound, saying that she knows this ointment, adding that it doesn't hurt at all. She adds that Charlie's wound needs to be treated very well, but the main character is too busy looking at her legs. Carol tells Charlie that he fights too much, to which he replies that he will be fine. Carol asks him what he did yesterday, asking him not to make up any nonsense, but to be honest. Charlie replies that he just committed an act of knightly justice, to which Carol tells him that he is definitely lying. Charlie asks Carol what time Uncle Lou returned yesterday, to which she replies that he did not return. The main character says that it seems to him that the night watch works quite cruelly, adding that they have almost no free time to recover. Carol doesn't say anything, and Charlie realizes that she is very worried about her father. The main character realized that most of the Night Watch employees put their lives in danger every day, and Uncle Lee was left without an arm, and the soldier, whose name was Lin Mo, died at the age of 20. Carol asks Charlie if he will go to work on the Night Watch if he passes the martial arts exam. Charlie thinks about the offer for a few seconds, and then asks Carol if there will be beauties there. Carol doesn't appreciate Charlie's joke and pulls his cheek, telling him to shut his mouth. Carol's friends eavesdrop on their conversations and squabbles, standing outside the door. The guy asks the girl what's going on, to which she replies that everything is obvious. After a while, when the sounds of the fight die down, the friends enter the room and ask Charlie how he is feeling. Charlie sits on the sofa, saying that he is fine, and invites the guests to sit down. The guests sit down next to him, and Charlie begins to tell them a made-up story about his adventures. Carol tells Charlie that she is going to the store and takes his torn jacket, saying that she will throw it away. Charlie doesn't mind and continues to tell his guests his fascinating stories. Suddenly, Charlie remembers that there are things left in the jacket and jumps towards Carol, asking her to wait a little. Carol turns to him and a package of feminine pads falls out of his jacket. Carol makes a face and asks Charlie why he might need it. Charlie replies that Carol had a stomachache yesterday, so he wanted to please her when he returned from the store. Friends watch the unfolding events with interest, taking out their phones. Charlie picks up the package and gives it to Carol, saying that if anything happens, she can contact him. Carol blushes and yells at Charlie that he shouldn't have done that before throwing the package at him. Charlie rubs his forehead where the packaging hit him and doesn't understand why Carol is so angry. After some time, Carol and friends leave, leaving Charlie alone. Charlie immediately uses the shadow pupil skill, creating a portal to the shadow world. While the portal is charging, Charlie returns to his shadow form, deciding to train. After some time, Charlie is smoothly transported to the other side, into the shadow world. Suddenly, Charlie feels very comfortable here. This feeling reminds the main character of finding himself in pure nature after a long time in a polluted city. Charlie also notes that his stomach has stopped hurting, and his blood volume has increased significantly. Charlie decides to start training and tries to jump, but flies up several meters without calculating the strength. Charlie feels overwhelmed with endless energy and decides to continue training. He performs challenging exercises like push-ups with effortless ease. Suddenly, the system informs Charlie that if he has activated the shadow bite, which only absorbs the darkness from the shadow layer. The system also adds that during the classes, his physical condition became incredibly stronger. Charlie decides his room is too small for space, so he'll practice outside. Charlie decides to try exercises on horizontal bars and easily performs the most difficult exercises. Meanwhile, another meeting begins at the Night Watch headquarters. The speaker reports that according to reports, unrest in the Shadow City has become more frequent and unpredictable. The speaker continues by saying that Night Watch units have discovered gaps in the northern, southern, and eastern districts. Another participant in the meeting comments on the information, saying that on the map, the areas of pollution cover mainly residential areas. Uncle Lou is present at the meeting, who mentally notes that recently others have begun to appear much more often. He recalls that in the past 2 days, there have been 4 incidents where people were dragged into the Shadow City. Although this seems like a small number, Uncle Lou has no idea when the others will attack next. From his point of view, compared to the shadow layer anomaly, the breaches pose a much greater threat. Lou realizes that someone else in the shadow layer may be like Godzilla, who has eaten too much steroids. Uncle Lee tells the council that these are just suspicions, so they shouldn't act like they've already lost. He also asks everyone present if they are really not ready for battle. The council and Uncle Lou do not answer this question, and he asks the others to continue. Uncle Lou takes out a pack of cigarettes, taking one of them between his teeth and reaching for his lighter. Suddenly, he finds himself holding cookies in his mouth, which Carol replaced with cigarettes. Uncle Lee decides to help out his friend and throws him his pack, which he easily catches. However, Lou does not take the cigarettes from there and tells Uncle Lee that he is afraid of lung cancer. Uncle Lee chuckles at Lou's words and doesn't really believe him, but quickly switches the topic to something more important. After some time, Uncle Lou asks Lee if this is indeed confirmed information, to which he asks him to check his laptop. Lou opens the computer and a message flashes up telling him that all Rank 2 specials must submit their children's applications for admission after they pass the exam. Lou asks Lee what department he's thinking of sending Charlie to. Lee says that he would be much better off doing ordinary crafts rather than going into martial arts or humanities. Lou asks him what will happen if Charlie passes the exam with flying colors. Lee takes one last breath and leaves the room, giving a rather evasive answer. Lou asks him to express himself more clearly, looking after him, to which he recommends that he conscientiously fulfill his duties. A girl enters the room and says that a few minutes ago they received a message from the shadow layer. A new report on the others reveals a strange other that appears to be a strange shadow. The creature is described as having a humanoid shape and was first discovered in the Chin Theater Garden. The report also says that the shadow is constantly engaged in sports, and when the detectors approach, it stops training and salutes. The girl adds that the observer discovered a strange other, about whom there is no information in the databases. Lou studies the report of the Night Watch and wonders what kind of other person this is. Meanwhile, in the shadow layer, Charlie comes across a spider monster and says that it contains a lot of protein. Charlie films everything on his phone and continues to say that spider meat is very healthy and juicy. Charlie is happy that his video about the shadow layer is liked by so many people and hopes that it will become popular very soon. Charlie decides to start a live broadcast about the others and watches how many people come to the stream. Charlie's joy is interrupted by a sudden notification from the system that almost causes him to drop his phone. The notice states that if he does not act first, he will die, adding that only after a series of constant killings will he be able to continue his quiet life. Charlie is angry that the system decided to scare him and jumped out at the most unexpected moment. However, despite his irritation, he notices that the system gives him 100 hours to commit the murder of another. Charlie goes into shock, unable to believe that his own life could end in 100 hours. The 100-hour deadline echoes in Charlie's head, and he freezes in place, trying to accept what's happening. Charlie remembers the description of the skill, understanding the risks involved, concluding that he is in trouble. Charlie calms himself down, saying that he should not worry, but urgently come up with some kind of plan. Charlie rereads the description of his ability and believes that he needs to fulfill the position of a hunter and hunts. Charlie concludes that he can live while he kills others, and perhaps even gain immortality. The system adds that immortality may consist not only in the inability to die, but also in the transition of the soul to a new body at death, which confuses Charlie. Charlie is skeptical of the system's suggestion that he enjoy killing, saying that he cannot enjoy it. Collecting his thoughts, he looks around the corner and watches the spider, mentally telling himself that he needs to kill the spider to earn himself hit points. Charlie puts the phone next to the pot and props it up with a pebble, deciding to record the fight with the spider on camera. After he completes the broadcast preparations, he summons his shadow form with a wave of his hand. Charlie talks quietly to the viewers of his broadcast, carefully approaching the sleeping spider from behind and swinging a bat. Charlie notes that he can't wait to use the steel he spent several thousand yuan on. Charlie strikes several times, causing the spider to instantly wake up and turn around. Charlie realizes that in shadow form he is almost impossible to notice, so he decides to find out about the monster's weak points. Having walked around the spider, he notices a significant point of vulnerability in the area of its sting and prepares to strike. Half an hour before Charlie appeared, the spider was calmly nesting on the street, rejoicing that the environment here was very comfortable. According to the spider, there is no depressing atmosphere here, and she just needs to be careful to live a comfortable life. Spider notes that he recently had to fight some ugly guy, noting that despite minor injuries, he received a full meal. The monster decides to get some sleep to fully restore his strength. Suddenly, the monster's spider sense tells him that someone is watching him closely. The spider jumps up and looks around, trying to figure out who is watching him. Not finding anyone with its eyes, the spider tells itself that this place still seems unsafe, therefore, but will spend the night in another place. Unexpectedly for the spider, severe pain pierces him in the area of the sting, piercing his body with discharges of shadow lightning. Charlie stands behind the monster and notes that he felt the shadow flowing out of him like a river, believing that if he found one more weak point, he could release all of his power. Charlie tries to remove the bat from the spider's wound, grateful that there is only 40% blood left. However, the spider quickly fires a beam of red energy at the arrogant Charlie, throwing him into the wall. Having cleared the dust, Charlie consoles himself with the fact that such a blow does not hurt him at all. The spider spins around in rage and tries to find the offender, and Charlie realizes that he still does not see him, otherwise the hit was accidental. Charlie gets to his feet and decides to use a shadow attack, diving underground as if into water. Charlie watches the spider from below, admiring how cool it feels to attack from the shadows. The main character tells himself that there is no need to fight another person face to face if he can wait for the right moment to strike a fatal blow. The spider continues to spin around, causing the bat stuck in it to cause minor bleeding damage. After waiting for the right moment, Charlie decides that it is time for the final blow. Meanwhile, on the streaming platform, the viewer decides to watch different bloggers who talk about a variety of things. Behind the stream about how things work differently, there are streams about travel, social experiments, and a bunch of other areas. The viewer is a bored white-haired girl who switches channels in search of the right one. Suddenly, the girl stumbles upon the stream of Charlie, who took the pseudonym Yo. The girl watches the stream with interest, terribly interested in the real show of battles with others. Charlie continues to broadcast, saying that he is fighting a spider, which is an ancient species of rank 1 ghost. The girl is angry that Yo's viewers are skeptical of his videos, telling herself that she can't stand such behavior. The girl quickly enters the chat and writes to Yo about what she can help him with in his case. Suddenly, the stream shows Charlie crawling out of the shadow next to the spider. The girl is surprised by this turn, guessing that the broadcast is also being conducted by someone else. She puts down the phone contentedly and decides to stay on the stream, saying that everything is getting much more interesting. Charlie leaps out of the shadows and flies into the air above the unsuspecting spider. However, the spider manages to hear the whistle from Charlie's impending blow and, turning around, meets him with a blow from the sting. The sting, like a knife through butter, pierces the surface and causes strong smoke from fragments of stones. However, as soon as the smoke clears, the spider discovers that no one is at the impact site. Someone pokes a finger at the spider on the other side, and it turns back, trying to figure out what's going on. Charlie, meanwhile, continues to film himself, mocking the uncomprehending monster. Charlie continues to dodge more and more of the spider's attacks, only teasing him back. The girl admires Yu's speed, saying that he is incredibly handsome and fast. The spider decides to switch to another tactic and spews out a stream of purple acid. The acid forms a small puddle around him, making undetected approaches from the ground impossible. Charlie asks the spider if he really thinks that he won't be able to do anything if the ground is covered in acid. Charlie climbs onto a building near the spider and lights up with blue fire, revealing his location to the monster. Having prepared for the attack, Charlie turns into a shadow clot and quickly flies through the building towards the spider. The spider again shoots streams of acid from itself, covering the building that Charlie flies through. However, Charlie easily teleports to another shadow, mentally saying that he can pass through buildings as long as he needs. Charlie makes a series of shadow dashes, taking the bat from the spider's body and appearing directly below it. Giving the monster no time, Charlie stabs it through the head with a bat, killing it in one blow. Moving away from the lifeless body, Charlie uses the Shadow Bite skill, absorbing the powers of the defeated spider. Having absorbed all the enemy's forces, Charlie says that his hunt is over for the day. The girl admits that it was an incredibly exciting sight, the likes of which she had not seen for a long time. The girl decides to establish contact with blogger Yo and writes him a message asking him to take him with her on a mission. Charlie studies the spider, looking at its characteristics and features. Finding out that spiders are rather weak opponents, Charlie sighs in disappointment, saying that he hoped he had defeated a strong enemy. Charlie notes that there was a large power gap between him and this other, but he took advantage of the shadow attack. Charlie ends the broadcast, happy that he had a whopping 150 viewers. The protagonist takes a second look at the abilities he has acquired and decides to try the Shadow Network skill. Concentrating, Charlie shoots a black substance shaped like a spider's rope into the building. Charlie pulls himself up on a makeshift rope and shouts joyfully that he succeeded. However, having lost his head from his successes, he does not have time to react in time and crashes face first into the wall. Charlie falls down and lands on the lantern, telling himself that he'll have to practice this skill more. Charlie checks his statuses in the system and notices that his lifespan is now 7 days, upset by such an insignificant increase. Charlie says that even though he has a week to spare, it's not so easy to find others, so it's better to be on the safe side. Charlie accesses the system again and unlocks the mark skill, which allows you to mark the selected target. The system notifies Charlie that the effect of the mark will last only 1 second for a single target, but this time will increase if the reputation increases. This ability will also reveal Charlie's location, which means he will have to use this skill with extreme caution. When hunting a marked target, the hunter's speed and agility increases, and upon successful completion of the hunt, one of the skills will be permanently enhanced. Charlie wonders when he got his reputation, but quickly realizes that it was a live broadcast. A cunning plan immediately matures in Charlie's head, and he decides to hunt others, gaining subscribers, which will make his reputation go uphill. Charlie jumps to the ground and decides that he still has a lot to do today, so he needs to try hard. Charlie quickly finds another one who, however, is superior in size and strength to the previous opponent. Having marked the target, Charlie rushes down with confidence, wanting to make a stealthy attack on the monster. After some time, Carol again heals the wounds that Charlie received in the last fight, while listening to his cries about how much pain he was in. The girl asks the main character who he fought with this time. Charlie tells Carol to calm down because he's going to be a hero, adding that she won't understand that. Carol is not impressed by Charlie's pretentious speeches and asks him about how many heroes whine every day about being hurt. Carol advises Charlie not to go anywhere unless he has the right skills, but he quietly mumbles that he could heal his wounds in a matter of seconds with the help of the shadow form, adding that he does not turn it on at all so that it will help him. Carol asks Charlie what he is saying now. Charlie quickly comes to his senses and abruptly changes the topic, asking her to watch a movie. Carol says there's not much to watch right now, adding that a blogger recently came along that has piqued everyone's interest. Carol approaches Charlie and shows him the phone, which is playing a recording of his own broadcast. In surprise, Charlie spits out the water he was drinking and coughs violently. Carol backs away from Charlie a little and asks him what caused such a violent reaction. Charlie brushes it off with generalities, after which he asks his lover how often she watches this blogger. Carol moves closer to Charlie again, saying that she has been watching this blogger for 2 days, saying that this blogger has become the most popular and unusual. Charlie is worried that such a rapid increase in popularity could attract the attention of the Night Watch and asks Carol whether publishing others is a crime. Carol notes that it's really not worth disclosing your knowledge about them, however. From her point of view, blogger Yo's shows do not affect people's consciousness, so she does not see this as an offense. The girl moves even closer to Charlie to better show him the video and says that she wants to follow the example of this blogger, who fights so well with others. She also points out to Charlie that one of the bloggers has already done an analysis of Yo's video. Charlie smiles and sits quietly, admiring how interested Carol is. After finishing watching the video, Carol asks Charlie if she too can become so famous someday. Charlie asks Carol what she will do, additionally asking if she plans to wear a white silk dress and dance in the shadow layer. Carol is embarrassed and says that she was thinking about making some videos about others, to which Charlie remarks that it might be too informative. He also says that if Carol goes out in such an outfit, her fans will start following her, and nothing good will come of it. Carol's face changes and begins to suspect something, after which she asks what he means by these words. Suddenly she comes behind Charlie and takes out a gun, pointing it to the protagonist's back. Carol irritably asks Charlie if he got his injuries while he was also tracking someone. Charlie quickly throws his hands up and loudly admits that he was only joking. Carol asks him how she knows he's not lying, to which Charlie begs Carol to let him go, calling him an officer. After Carol leaves, Charlie decides to take a break and plops down on the couch, pulling out his phone. Charlie checks his personal messages, in which he is bombarded with skeptical assumptions that all his videos are fakes. The main character does not understand this attitude towards him, puzzling over the reason why he is considered a fraudster. He clicks on one of the links in the messages and goes to a video in which a user named Earth Tao says he will take down the scammer. The Earthly Tao describes Charlie in a mocking manner, saying that this is not real. As the first evidence, Earthly Gift cites the fact that several frames in his video do not have a smooth transition, which indicates an editing splice. The blogger also pays attention to the background, suggesting that it is also a superimposed special effect. Charlie says that Earth Tao was an ordinary food blogger and doesn't understand why he suddenly decided to expose him. Earth Tao says that he is a freelance member of the Night Watch, so he can easily recognize a fake. Charlie opens the comments and notices that some viewers agree with the Earthly Tao and says that someday these fools will know the whole truth. Charlie decides to start hunting for other aliens, but first of all, he needs to teach the Earthly Tao a lesson. The main character again uses the shadow pupil, and with renewed vigor he jumps into the shadow layer. This time, Charlie attaches a mini camera to his shoulder to make the shooting more natural. Charlie observes the city, noting that today the number of others is much lower, remembering that the shadow layer is reset from time to time. After a long search, Charlie finally spots another 6th rank and decides it's time to start hunting. Taking out a bat enhanced by shadow powers, he tells himself that he is very interested in what another of the 6th rank is capable of. Charlie runs to the edge of the building to fall like a stone directly on someone else, but does not find him below. Frustrated by this state of affairs, Charlie quickly goes down the stairs. Going down, he finally stumbles upon another, who is also looking around in search of victims. Concentrating, Charlie casts a marking spell on his unsuspecting opponent. After placing the mark, the other immediately senses Charlie's presence and his heartbeat increases significantly. Charlie notes that the other is overcome by an inexplicable fear, and he begins to look around in search of Charlie. Also, the main character finds some similarities in this other and the monster with whom he fought at the very beginning of his journey. However, now, according to Charlie, he himself has evolved and will fight much better than then. Charlie charges, impaling the monster with his bat using the six-strike technique. Another suffers severe damage that reduces his life force to 45% and emits a high-pitched scream of pain. The other flies into the air and Charlie rushes after him, reactivating the tag and the chase effects. Charlie delivers a crushing blow, but the creature easily dodges, making rapid dashes in the air. The monster decides to launch a quick counterattack, going behind Charlie's back, but he quickly jumps to the side, pushing off the wall with his feet. Upon landing, Charlie swings his bat to make a quick dash towards his opponent. However, another opens its mouth and uses its tentacles to accumulate psionic energy. From the mental attack, Charlie loses initiative and begins to feel very dizzy. Without waiting for Charlie to come to his senses, the monster attacks using its powers, delivering several psionic blows to his body. Charlie rises to his feet after being hit and notices that his blood count has dropped by 34% in just one hit. The main character decides to change his strategy, otherwise things will end very badly for him. The monster continues to attack Charlie with its blades, but he dodges, diving into the shadows. Having cornered the shadow, the monster strikes multiple times close to it to prevent Charlie's maneuvers. However, Charlie suddenly disappears from sight and appears on top of the monster, preparing for a series of powerful blows. Charlie goes into super speed, delivering dozens of blows per second, continuing to move elusively around the monster. In response to the monster's feeble attempt to escape, Charlie delivers a powerful elbow strike that knocks him to the ground. Charlie runs up to the other and prepares to use decapitation to finish off the monster once and for all. However, suddenly the other's face partially dissolves, and Charlie sees the same soldier named Lin Mo with whom he fought against his first other. Charlie stops and doesn't understand why Lin Mo became like this and how he ended up here. The other throws Charlie away with a blast of dark energy and escapes the grip. Taking advantage of the moment, the monster immediately starts running away without giving Charlie any answers. Charlie gives chase, asking the monster to stop, but stops a few minutes later, completely losing sight of the monster. The system tells Charlie that the hunt was almost a success, but at the last moment, everything did not go according to plan. She adds that continued failure will shorten his lifespan and weaken him. The system tells Charlie that if hunting is not his life, then his life will turn into a slow wait for death. Charlie angrily hits the system screen, which keeps repeating the same phrase over and over again. Charlie thinks about what a hero ultimately becomes who sacrifices himself to save others. He wonders to himself whether he too will turn into a monster when he dies. However, realizing that there is no turning back for him, Charlie decides to continue the hunt. Charlie arrives in Eastern District No. 1, which is one of the gathering places. The main character uses the shadow's pupil and creates a portal to the roof of the building to better see the situation. Charlie feels that there are many more others here, but apparently they are unlikely to leave the building. However, turning around, he notices that there is another large one on the roof of a neighboring building. Charlie also notices that his leg is seriously damaged, which could give him a great advantage in a fight with this creature. Charlie tries to sneak up behind the other, carefully crawling out of the shadows, but the monster hears his actions. The monster turns around sharply, but Charlie manages to quickly slip back into the shadows. Charlie notices the red dots on the monster's body, believing that they are why he is so sensitive, and decides to calm his target. Charlie waits patiently for the monster to let his guard down again and finally finds a window of opportunity. Appearing above the monster, he reactivates the mark and boldly rushes into battle. Meanwhile, Carol stands in the kitchen of Charlie's apartment and, without turning around at the sound of the front door closing, asks him where he has been. She turns around and sees that Uncle Lee and Lou have arrived at the apartment, the latter of whom notices that she is cooking for Charlie again, little by little muttering about how, apparently, he was raising his daughter for him. Carol becomes embarrassed and turns away, telling her father that he is talking nonsense again. The girl asks her uncles why they returned so early, to which they answer that they finished early at the office, so they were lucky to get together. Carol's father suggests they all go to the restaurant, but Carol says there is no need since she has almost finished cooking. Uncle Lee sits down at the table and says that they can go another day, after which he invites the others to sit at the table too. Lee asks where Charlie is now, to which Carol assumes that he went out for a walk and will be back soon. Uncle Lee is outraged that Charlie has gone out to have fun, leaving Carol alone when suddenly the front door opens again. Charlie enters the apartment, saying that he is madly hungry, and turns to Carol, saying that the apartment smells delicious from her cooking. Charlie turns around and says that he's in a good mood today, so he bought her favorite candy, adding that he saw how many messages she sent him and asks her if she misses him. Carol and the uncles greet this performance with significant silence and awkward glances. Charlie quickly puts on the face of the most innocent person on earth and says that he was attacked by a dog on the way, which is why he was so late. Uncle Lee says that they rarely get a moment to get together, so Charlie should not ruin the fun and just sit down at the table. After Charlie sits down at the table, Charlie pats him on the shoulder and tells him that it's okay to fight a lot as a guy. Uncle Lou adds that he also doesn't see anything wrong with showing off to the girl he likes during his youth. Uncle Lee says that he recently saw Lou with some girl and asks her about her, to which Uncle Lou vividly describes the merits of his girlfriend, saying that he would give everything for such a girl if he were young. Uncle Lou raises his glass, offering to drink to the success of everyone present. Charlie notices that Carol is blushing when her father talks about his girlfriend and smiles slyly. Charlie proposes the next toast to Uncle Lou in particular, knowing in his mind that these two will most likely leave him a wet spot. Charlie also adds that Uncle Lou should eat more vegetables, since he is away from home all day and rarely gets to eat Carol's cooking. Charlie says he's sure Carol cooks at home often because her skills are top-notch. Uncle Lou reflects in his mind that Carol seems to be putting a lot of effort into taking care of Charlie since he himself is constantly eating takeout. After some time, Carol and Uncle Lou say goodbye to Charlie and Uncle Lee and go home. Left alone, Charlie first offers Uncle Lee a drink of water, but he refuses. Suddenly, Uncle Lee tells Charlie that he wanted to ask him something important. Lee stares at Charlie and asks him what he thinks he has. Uncle Lee says that he has been serving on the night watch for 20 years, and it costs him nothing to recognize Charlie's injuries, and then asks him about when his abilities appeared. Charlie sits on the sofa next to his uncle and says that his abilities manifested themselves half a month ago. Uncle Lee asks him how they manifested themselves and asks him not to worry but to simply answer. Charlie says that he himself did not really understand how they appeared since it was too sudden. Uncle Lee is surprised, saying that this kind of situation happens extremely rarely. Charlie makes the assumption that all this is due to his exceptional talents. Uncle Lee greets this act of extraordinary modesty with knowing silence and places his hand on Charlie's shoulder. Uncle says that this year there will be a test and everyone must pass the martial arts exam. Charlie says that both he and Carol know about it while Uncle Lee decides to get a cigarette. He says that in recent years the night watch unit has come under intense pressure and the number of victims is constantly growing. Lee tells Charlie that he can offer him a backup plan in case he fails the martial arts exam. He says that Charlie can choose from several schools to attend, adding that if Charlie likes comics, he can choose the art department or any other. Charlie asks Uncle Lee if he can just take away his diploma and not go anywhere. Lee slaps Charlie in the face and says that he might not even dream of such a thing. He says that Charlie should go to Lindong University, after which he can get a stable job and live happily with Carol. Charlie scratches his head and tells his uncle that this is not what he wants. According to him, he would really like to try to become a special member of the Night Watch. Uncle Lee yells at Charlie, saying that he should listen to him and not argue with him. Charlie says that if Uncle Lee doesn't allow him, he will go to the Night Watch and pawn him. Uncle Lee says that the special world is more dangerous than anything he has ever seen, again suggesting that he study calmly and not worry. Charlie says he's serious too, adding that there are dangers everywhere and Uncle Lee won't be able to protect him forever. Uncle Lee tells Charlie that he will most likely regret his decision, but if he thinks about transferring, he can contact him at any time. Charlie asks Uncle Lee not to put a spoke in his wheels, to which he just shrugs it off and says goodbye to him. Charlie tells his uncle that, based on the information he looked at from Carol, before dying, special people must use all their powers before dying so as not to turn into a monster. Charlie wonders if there is a possibility that a person will become different even if he has exhausted his powers, to which he receives an affirmative answer. Uncle Lee asks Charlie why he is asking, to which he replies that it is all out of sporting interest. Lee says that if he chooses martial arts, sooner or later he will face it anyway, so he better take a break and stop fighting. He adds that this year's challenge will take place before the new year, so if he wants to win, he will need to prepare. Uncle Lee leaves, leaving Charlie alone with his thoughts. Charlie sits on the sofa and thinks about the reasons why Lin Mo turned into another. He remembers that the Night Watch is supposed to take all people from the battlefield, regardless of their abilities. Charlie does not exclude the possibility that he was mistaken, and the other person he fought with had the ability to cause hallucinations. Charlie's viewer goes to his blog and sees a new video there, which makes him very happy. Moving on to the comments, she finds that the number of haters and skeptics has increased significantly. She sits down comfortably and begins sending her angry replies to everyone who disagrees. After she sends her opinion to everyone, the girl tells herself that blogger Ye is definitely not a liar. She turns on the video and enjoys the complete immersion provided by the mini camera attached to Charlie's body. Charlie jumps down from the roof of a building, causing the girl to be afraid that he is about to fall to his death. However, several tens of meters from the ground, Charlie uses a shadow net and begins to swing on it, causing delight among his fan. Suddenly, a beam of otherworldly energy hits Charlie, knocking him down and knocking him to the ground. Another approaches Charlie and puts his paw on him to prevent him from escaping. This time, Charlie again fights with a large other, who is a rather serious opponent. However, Charlie breaks free from the grip, flying up and knocking over the other with the help of a shadow net. The girl looks at Charlie's shadow form and says that he is incredibly handsome. She continues to watch Charlie fight the huge monster with undisguised admiration. The girl notes that it all looks too natural, and there can be no mistake in plausibility here. In her opinion, Charlie is indeed the real killer of others from Beidou. Charlie uses Shadow Bite on a downed opponent to absorb their essence. The girl assumes that Charlie is doing this to gain additional abilities. She remembers that it was exactly the same before when he fought the giant spider. Sometime later, Charlie returns home and examines his wounds in the mirror. Charlie says that the others in the area are very strong, noting that if they weren't injured, he wouldn't be able to survive. Charlie opens his phone and again finds himself on a video of the earthly Tao, in which he again analyzes the video of blogger Yo. He reviews the new video, saying that the other one Charlie fought was wounded and very weak, adding that even an ordinary person can handle such things. In Dao's opinion, the special one would not pay attention to such weaklings. Charlie admits that the fight was not very spectacular, but these videos still make him very angry. In Charlie's opinion, his current strength is still not enough for anything more. Charlie decides that he must become so strong that no one will dare to doubt him. Charlie brings up the system window and looks at his data, which says he looks strong but is actually weak. Charlie is angry at the notice, saying that he could give both his uncles and Carol a head start in terms of strength. However, he does not argue that his current abilities are not enough, and he will need to become even stronger. Charlie notes that his shadow points are not indicators of experience, as he previously thought, but rather reflect his energy reserves. He estimates that using the shadow thread or shadow pupil requires about 3 glasses. According to his further calculations, the mark and the chase have different degrees of consumption, and the shadow form depends on the environment. Charlie sums up his thoughts by saying that the specials are very strong and he can only fight them in his shadow form, adding that even in this state he is unlikely to last long. However, the main character does not give up and believes that even this will be enough to at least intimidate them. Charlie tells himself that restraint is not his thing, so he will give it his all. Sometime later, Charlie goes shopping with Carol and her friends. He shouts at the girls that they are liars, adding that they promised that this would not last longer than an hour. Charlie tells himself that if he continues to waste his life like this, he won't last even a few days, to which Carol's friend replies that it's better not to joke about it. Charlie says he's not kidding, explaining that if he doesn't kill, he'll die. His interlocutor asks him what he means, to which he brushes it off, saying that the girls have finally returned. Carol suggests going to a cafe, and the group of friends head to the appropriate section, not noticing the presence of a dark entity behind them. Charlie takes the girls to the best cafe in his opinion, and Carol studies the menu, which, among other things, serves steamed bull genitals. Charlie laughs it off and says that he recently got injured, so he orders several dishes at once. Carol, gritting her teeth, is surprised that Charlie chose so many normal dishes and did not even stop at choosing any exotic ones. Charlie agrees with Carol's conclusions, saying that the dishes are indeed ordinary, asking the waiter to add more oysters to the order. The waiter brings the guys their order, and Charlie hands the oyster to Carol, but she is mischievous and refuses. Carol's phone starts ringing and she reads a message saying that the martial arts exam will be held early. Carol's friend also receives this message and is surprised that this exam will now be mandatory. Carol's friend tells her friend that this is indeed true and complains that it will be held ahead of schedule. Charlie encourages the young man, patting him on the shoulder and saying that his qualifications are not enough in any case. The young man replies that at the age of 7 he was greatly frightened by someone else, and while he destroyed him, he managed to develop a mental illness. Charlie does not miss the opportunity to show off and immediately begins to show off, saying that he would have handled it differently in a matter of minutes. Carol says most people would run away in a situation like this, adding that even if everything feels normal, others won't go away. The guys wilt from such gloomy thoughts, and Charlie decides to diffuse the situation by offering everyone a drink. He tries to make a toast, but they are interrupted by the loud sound of a siren echoing throughout the mall. Carol's face changes and says that this is a pollution sensor siren, which indicates that someone else has entered the territory. A crowd of people begins to panic and tries to run out of the building, not allowing anyone to pass. Carol's friend says there are too many people, adding that it will be impossible for them to get out. Carol tries to calm everyone down, saying that they need to keep their cool and slowly move towards the exit. However, Charlie solves the problem a little more simply and breaks a hole in the wall so that they can get out. He runs outside and turns to his friends, telling them to hurry up. Charlie looks around and notices how a red shadow portal begins to form not far from him. A few seconds later, a huge other emerges from the portal, the likes of which Charlie has never seen. Charlie realizes that there are too many people here, so transforming now would be a bad decision. He grabs Carol's hand and runs with her and her friends away from danger. Carol notes that there should have been barriers near the shopping center, not understanding where someone else could come from here. Charlie says it's too late to talk about it and their only option is to run away. They find a way out and are about to run towards it, while the entire environment begins to change. Suddenly, the entire building begins to shake and Charlie yells at his friends to all hold on to him. However, quite quickly the floor gives way and our heroes fall down. Charlie comes to his senses and stands up, checking himself and asking the others if they are okay. Carol and her friend say they are fine and got away with only scratches. Unfortunately, her friend is much less lucky, and his leg is pinned by a piece of stone. Charlie runs up to him and says that he will help him now, asking him not to worry. Without the slightest difficulty, the main character picks up a stone fragment and throws it away. Carol takes out a container of pills from her pockets and gives some to her friend, saying that this should help him. Her friend wonders why it has become so dark and asks what this place is. Carol admits that she doesn't know anything because she hasn't been in similar situations. Charlie assumes that they are on one of the floors of the shopping center and goes to investigate. After a second, he catches that same familiar sensation to which he is accustomed on his hunts. He realizes that an entire floor or even the entire shopping center has been transferred to the shadow layer. Charlie notices that there are too many survivors who need immediate help. He remembers that there are no means of transportation in the shadow layer, so it will take the Night Watch a lot of time to get here. The most terrible risk from the point of view of the main character is that if they stay for a long time, they will fall under a large amount of pollution, even without taking into account the threat of meeting with others. Charlie asks Carol how far away she is from the watch her father gave her. Carol remembers her watch and says that she has it right there. She activates the watch and says that she has now transmitted a signal for help, thanks to which the people from the Night Watch will come faster. Charlie notes that, among other things, this watch can resist pollution. Charlie decides not to let his guard down, since someone else could attack them at any moment. Shadow clumps appear on the floor, and people start screaming that a monster has come here. However, instead, Charlie realizes that the building has begun to shake again, and they again fall down one floor. Carol comes to her senses and loudly calls her friends by name, hoping that they will respond. The first to respond is her friend named Martha, who says that she is fine, after which a friend named Fred answers her call. There is a huge crack not far from them, and Martha is horrified to think that Charlie could have fallen there. In the same building, Charlie's spectator found herself coming to her senses and trying to understand what happened. She remembers that she was running out of the shopping center with her friend named Gerda, but after the alarm everyone ran and that's where her memories end. The girl turns around to find her friend's body crushed by rubble. a huge other appears in front of the girl and swings his blade to kill her. The girl reflects that she never thought that she would end up in a horror movie, hoping that some hero would save her. However, at the last moment, the monster's attack is intercepted by Charlie, who managed to put on his shadow form. Charlie activates a new Shadow Claw ability that increases the lethality of his strikes. He rushes into battle, teleporting above another, preparing to strike him with his claws. However, the Shadow Spirit manages to quickly jump away from Charlie's series of blows. The girl lets out an excited scream, not believing that she has met her favorite blogger, surprising Charlie. She starts running around him, saying that she is his fan and watches every video, admitting that she really likes him. Charlie politely reminds the girl that her dress and tights are torn, to which she asks him where he is looking. The girl adds that if he doesn't like this, then she can run home to change into new clothes. Charlie asks her if she will even change her tights, to which she replies that she will do anything for him. The monster decides to attack again, and Charlie says that now is not the time for that, preparing for a fight. Charlie begins a new hunt and disappears into the shadows, hiding from the other to sneak up from behind. He subtly uses a shadow net to catch the back of another's head, knocking him to the ground. Charlie tries to finish off the monster with a blow of his claws, but he twists in the air and dodges the blow. Charlie notes that this guy has a lot of strength and agility, otherwise he would be dead. Charlie takes off, deciding to make one more attempt to attack. However, the monster meets Charlie with a double blade attack, knocking him back. Charlie gets to his feet as the monster splits into several identical copies at once. The girl films Charlie on her phone, wishing him good luck, promising to wear stockings for him if he wins. Inspired by this proposal, Charlie rushes into battle against an enemy outnumbering him. He easily dodges the other's heavy attacks, which cause an explosion on the ground. To prevent his opponent from attacking, Charlie uses a shadow net to entangle his opponent's blades. Seizing the moment, Charlie delivers 2 deadly blows to the shadow creatures, killing 2 in one blow. Charlie rejoices at his success, but then misses a blow from behind and another pierces his shoulder. Charlie manages to escape from the other's kill zone and runs away, trying to think of a new tactic. He notes that others are now working together, saying that this was not the case before. Charlie decides that if he continues to adhere to the same tactics, then he will have no chance of winning, and decides to get the other one from afar. However, the monster, as if expecting such a decision, easily dodges the shadow matter shot. Charlie is surprised that the monster was able to react this time, although he had always succeeded in this technique before. The monster copies itself again and attacks Charlie at the same time to not give him a chance to dodge. Charlie realizes that he is not allowed to go into the shadows and tries to block the blows from others. Charlie quickly loses his health, losing it to 45% and realizing that it is impossible to continue in the same spirit. Charlie lures others to a convenient location and uses his marking skill, causing them to lose their ability to think clearly due to fear. Taking advantage of the opponent's delay, Charlie begins to destroy them one by one. Having reached the marked monster, Charlie uses decapitation and finishes off the monster. The monster dies, and Charlie decides to take a breather while receiving a new system message. The system reports that the hunt was completed successfully, and his shadow form has become more powerful, adding that his abilities now consume fewer shadow points. Charlie regains his blood points and looks at the remaining others, asking them why they stopped. The main character decides that if they do not attack, he will strike first and rushes into battle again. However, as soon as Charlie breaks distance from his opponents, a flash of light explodes near them. Charlie is surprised that the flash of light was in the shadow layer and looks for its source with his eyes. Charlie notices a light where others are flocking to and feels a strange desire to join them. The source of the flame turned out to be one of the Night Watch commanders named Murphy, who has the skill of an ever-burning torch. Using his strength, he deals with several others and focuses his gaze on Charlie, who says that he can handle everything himself. Another appears behind Commander Murphy, but he destroys him with his power. Charlie admires the commander's strength, mentally reflecting that if he hit him, he would disappear in that second. Charlie approaches the Night Watch, saying that they were a little late and almost let him lose. When asked if he is okay, Charlie replies that he will be fine, asking him to take care of the girl he found. After taking his leave, Charlie says that he will leave the girl to them and disappears into the shadows, heading towards his friends. Murphy asks his ally if they have such a person, to which he replies that he is a famous streamer, who, however, is not particularly strong. Murphy says he had a torch in his hand and his shadow form was unharmed. Murphy decides that he needs to get this girl home first and then check on this blogger. Carol goes in search of Charlie, wandering among the mountains of dead bodies and loudly calling his name. She turns on the flashlight on her watch and whispers to herself that Charlie couldn't have died. Charlie, crushed by the stones, answers his lover and raises his hand so that she notices him. Charlie says that he is about to be crushed, and Carol, in a panic, begins to throw away the stones that are lying on him. After removing a couple of rocks, Carol easily pulls Charlie out with one hand. She tells Charlie that these stones didn't put any pressure on him at all, to which he just laughs it off. Carol notices a wound on Charlie's back and asks him where he got it, but he says he has no idea when he got it. To change the subject, Charlie asks Carol about where Martha and Fred are now. Carol replies that the night watch came to their aid and everyone was evacuated to a safe place. Charlie asks Carol if she stayed to find him, to which she replies that if something happened to him, she wouldn't be able to look Uncle Lee in the eye. Charlie approaches Carol and hugs her tightly, glad that she stayed for him. Carol is shy and asks Charlie to let him go, to which he continues to cling to her, saying that he saw scary others with blades. Charlie says that he is very scared and asks Carol to stay with him a little longer, to which she threatens to beat him. The flirtation of the two heroes is interrupted by a bright warm light and a calm female call. A night watch employee comes up to them and says that she heard screams and asks if everything is okay. Carol abruptly pushes Charlie away and says that everything is fine, to which the employee says that she will now take them to the exit. Charlie leaves and remembers that he forgot to absorb the essence of defeated monsters, lamenting the lost shadow glasses. After some time, Charlie and all the other survivors arrive at the night watch tower. The interviewer asks Charlie his name and age and if he is enrolling this year. An interviewer named Stella says that the latest incident has consequences in the form of the need for psychological help for some victims. Stella states that if the exam is taken during the psychological counseling period, the grade will be reduced. Charlie says that he feels everything is fine with him, assuring that there is no need for therapy. Stella says that the pollution process can occur hidden, and sometimes when it is detected, it is already too late. She adds that treatment must be completed without fail, after which Charlie clarifies with her that after treatment, he will only have 10 days left before the exam. Stella says that many similar situations have happened in past years, so the Night Watch has developed a special policy regarding this matter. According to her, based on this policy, an interested person can apply in advance. Stella explains that the pretest is done during night patrols, and the results are entered into the system, just like an exam. Charlie says that he has a guardian who also works on the night watch. Stella tells him that this makes everything easier and asks him to say his name as she prepares to write it down. Charlie says that his guardian seems to be a civilian and his name is Lee, which stuns Stella. She repeats her uncle's name and hovers over Charlie, asking him if he's actually working as a civilian. Charlie gets scared and asks if his uncle was fired, hoping he didn't say something out of place. Stella stands up and says she will take him straight to him, asking him to follow her. Charlie and Stella walk through the huge Night Watch headquarters, and Charlie looks around. Several members of the Night Watch pass by Charlie, actively discussing the phenomenon of blogger Yo, saying that they do not have such a person. Charlie becomes tense when he hears these conversations, and Stella asks him if everything is okay. Charlie laughs it off, saying he was just a little worried, knowing in his mind that they would find him soon, while Stella asks him to rest in his room until Lee arrives. Charlie enters the room and sees that Carol and all his friends are in the room. Carol's attention is absorbed by the very girl that Charlie saved and her stories about what she saw of blogger Yo. Charlie notices the girl and mentally says that her presence here could cause a lot of problems. Carol quickly invites Charlie to sit down and asks the girl to continue her story about Yo. The girl says that she saw you fight with 10 others at the same time and finish them all off in an instant. She adds that when others could no longer move, the Night Watch arrived, and you disappeared into the shadows, leaving his laurels. Carol wonders who this you is, saying that he is definitely not a member of the Night's Watch. The girl says that her intuition tells her that this blogger is an ordinary student, since he is in love with a girl's legs, especially if they are uncovered, just like hers. She concludes that overall he is very similar to Charlie and points the finger at him. Carol jumps on Charlie, asking him if he wants to die, and swings her fist. Another love showdown is interrupted by Uncle Lou, who bursts into their room. He tells Carol that he heard that she fell into the shadow layer and asks her if she is okay. Carol pulls Charlie's cheek and says she's fine, adding that Charlie feels fine too. Lou smiles slightly and says that since everything is fine, they should follow him. Carol and Charlie follow Uncle Lou and sit in the little room where Uncle Lou says that this is the first time an entire store has fallen into the shadow layer. Uncle Lou takes out a cigarette and says that because of this incident, the test for them will be done earlier. Catching Carol's stern gaze, Uncle Lou decides not to smoke and calmly puts the cigarette down. He says that the test is divided into 2 parts, adding that the first part will test abilities and the second will test willpower. He adds that the aptitude test is known as the initial awakening, during which candidates will confront the defilement. However, according to Uncle, the test of willpower will be their spiritual will, which will determine whether they can become special. Charlie asks his uncle if strong will is the key to victory, to which he says that it is not necessary. In his opinion, willpower lies not only in the ability to endure pain, but also in belief in good and evil and resistance to evil thoughts. Charlie asks his uncle whether these points affect willpower, to which he incomprehensibly asks him why he needs to know this. Carol offendedly says that someone's thoughts are occupied with girls' legs, somewhat embarrassing Charlie.